Hey guys, it's Ollie from Rad Season. I'm excited to be joined today by the marketing director and the chief of propaganda for the Adventurists, Dan Wedgwood. Dan, thanks for coming on the show, man.
No worries, Ollie.
Whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm in Bristol at the moment, in my spare room where I've been for the last 10 months.
Wow, what's what? And then, like, have you been able to get out at all recently? And like with everything with the lockdown and.
No, actually, life in Bristol's been pretty boring, unfortunately. No, we're pretty much fully locked down here, and very, very bored of it now. I don't know about you.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm over in Portugal, and it's kind of they went into full lockdown a couple of days ago. So yeah, we can kind of get out for exercise, and that's about it. But yeah, you can't even grab a cheeky espresso anymore. So it's sort of
Nope.
not even a takeaway. It's a kind of like which is good. So I mean, I guess they're trying to they're trying to kind of stop people gathering and all that. So I guess it's the same. It's probably the same in where you are, right, in Bristol, and
yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, the world has basically screeched to a halt here for now.
Yeah, man. Well, I guess I'd love to take it back to the beginning of how the journey of Adventurists began, and we've got a bit of a thing in common. So we went to Swansea University in 2000, and I was really curious to see, why did you pick Swansea in Wales?
I actually got in by emailing the admissions tutor 3 o'clock in the morning after a massive night out in Sydney. And he took pity on me and let me in, basically. I'd gone on a gap year and I only had a couple of choices, and they told me I had to go through an interview. Apparently I didn't quite make the cut for automatic acceptance. So they sent me all these questions about English literature, the course I wanted to do. And I forgot to answer because I was busy. Found myself on a big night out with some Welshmen, and decided in my drunken genius to email the admissions guy at 3 o'clock in the morning. And basically told him how amazing I was and what I was up to. Woke up the next morning in terror that I'd lost my one chance to go to uni. And he said, "Thank you very much, Mr. Wedgwood. You've got 12 hours to write me a serious response and I'll consider your entry." So I wrote back, good. Profusely apologised for being very, very pissed, and he let me in.
and was that like so then when like did you finish your gap year because of that, or you were going to kind of finish it anyway and then you were looking at what you were going to do afterwards?
No, I was going to do the gap year anyway. I was just quite lazy, so I didn't apply for uni until after I got my results. So
yeah,
and Swansea really was my last chance, so it was good that he had a good sense of humour.
And what did you think of it, like with your time there?
I think Swansea's incredible and massively underrated. Really, really, really good place. Loads of people that I knew from my hometown in Bournemouth just didn't have any idea what it was about or why I would go there. Just had a completely outdated image of it. But yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I sort of picked it because I was sort of looking at a university that was close to the beach, and I think Swansea is like one of the closest to the sea and to any kind of decent surf in the UK. So that was my reason. That's what I put in my form when I was applying as well. I was like, all right, I can kind of sneak off and try and get a surf down the Gower, like in between studying and stuff. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I took my academia very seriously. That was actually my only criteria for uni, that it was by the sea.
Cool, man. And then so after you finished your English course, what did you do after that? What was your first job after uni?
I got really lucky, actually. I went straight into a job with a round the world yacht race, which is quite random, mainly because I couldn't sail at all. I think I'd been on a boat once, but I did some work experience for them, just writing race reports about one of their smaller races. And then they decided that they'd bring me on as a non-sailor to sort of translate sailing to normal people, because yachties speak in jargon quite a lot and it can feel like a bit of a closed community. I got really lucky. Straight after graduation, I went and I raced around Britain and Ireland on a race which took 12 days at sea, and they sort of taught me to sail along the way, and then plonked me in an office and told me to report on a round the world yacht race.
Wow. Was that the first time you've done proper sailing then? And
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I did a couple of training sails across the channel while I was still at uni.
Yeah.
And then they just threw me straight in. It was great.
And how long did you do that for?
That was 1 year.
Okay.
For the duration of that race. It was. It doesn't run anymore, sadly. It was run by a guy called Sir Che Blythe, who's just the hardest man I've ever met. He former para and was the first guy to sail around the world against the prevailing winds. So it's much easier going with the winds. He went against them, which is pretty hardcore. And this race allowed normal people to sign up, pay money to be taught how to sail. And each boat had one professional skipper, and then they raced each other around the world. It's good.
Cool, man. And then, you were doing race reports like every day for them, or how did it work?
Every day. I'd call the skippers on satellite phones, find out what was going on, write up who was winning, who was losing, who was crying themselves to sleep, who was, who had gangrene, all that sort of stuff. And then I would speak to the people in the office who did understand sailing and weather patterns and that sort of things, and try and translate what was actually happening with the race, and put that in a report twice a day for the world. So it was good practice for the adventurists, I think, because I was just making it up as I went along, doing working in industry I had no knowledge of whatsoever, but it all seemed to work. And it was great straight out of university. Amazing first job. Yeah,
that's cool. And then after that, was that when you were then working as a press officer for Dee? So that was...
Yeah, so Dee Kafari, she became the first woman to sail around the world non-stop against the prevailing winds. She was one of the skippers in that race, and I got on really well with her. And luckily, her team sort of took me with her onto this next campaign, and I did a similar job looking after her and writing race reports and helping shout about it when she did her solo mission.
Nice. And were you thinking, okay, like from doing those two jobs, this was something that you were like those kind of sailing events and races? I mean, it's pretty nuts, right? I mean, looking at what these guys are trying to do, and try if they're trying to attempt these things, were you looking at that going, okay, like I could maybe try and forge a career out of something like pretty unique and pretty adventurous already back then, or was it something?
I think offshore sailing is one of the most sort of underappreciated action adventure activities you can do. I don't think most people realize just how hardcore it is. Maybe more so now. The round the world sailing's got a bit more coverage with Ellen McCarthy and all sorts of other stuff, but it's properly hardcore. In the end, actually, I fell into adventure entirely by accident. I had these amazing jobs after university, round the world sailing, Dee Kafari, and then I worked for Sir Robin Knox Johnston for a few weeks, helping him out on a campaign. And then I ended up doing mostly sort of PR type work. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing PR work, but the clients I had started getting less and less interesting, and my soul gradually began to die. And I got more and more unhappy. And in the end, I decided I needed a complete change. And I had done the Mongol Rally as a team. So I drove my Nissan Micra from London to Mongolia. And I just told everyone I spoke to that I needed a new job because my soul was dying on the inside. And it was Tom from the Adventurists who had just decided to turn the car rally, the original Mongol Rally, into a company. Just randomly offered me a job out of nowhere. So it was just sort of coincidence, really.
That's amazing. And what made you choose, why did you want to do the Mongol Rally in the first place?
I was going to get a train, actually, to Mongolia. And I just so happened to work with Tom's cousin, actually, at the time. And she looked out of our office window and said, "You see that car you've got? That's so rubbish. You already qualify for my cousin's rally. You shouldn't be so lazy and get the train. You should drive to Mongolia." And at that point, I think only 6 teams had done it before that time. So we were the first rally where it was sort of more than the first few.
Wow.
And we didn't really know what was going to happen. But we gave it a go. And we got there. It took us 4 weeks in my actual normal car, which was already so crap it qualified for the Mongol Rally.
And was it just you and a mate, or was there...
Yeah, just
Was there others? Okay.
me and an old school friend. Yeah. Zero mechanical knowledge, zero preparation, no spare parts, no tools, not really much for clue. And I'd only just learned to drive as well. I got my driving license in, I think it was May, and then we set off in July. So I was also absolutely terrible driver.
What was the scariest country to drive in?
At that time, probably Kazakhstan.
Okay.
There were bits of that. I think it's quite different now. We're talking, this was back in 2005, so 15 years ago. There was quite a lot of bits of road that hadn't been built yet, or highways under construction. And at that time, quite a lot of bandits in some areas. So it's a bit sketchy at times, yeah.
And this was this the second year that Tom had been running it then, or was?
Yeah. The first year, the year before, 6 teams took part.
Yeah.
And then I did it in 2005, and there was 43 teams.
Wow. Okay. And then from then it just grew, and you like so yeah. So when you finished that, what happened then? So you were chatting to Tom, and you thought, okay, I'm gonna.
Yeah. I found myself. I found myself back in the real world, and it was just soul-crushingly boring. And like I said, my sort of clients for my work at the time were getting more and more dull. And then Tom decided that he'd take this concept behind the Mongol Rally and take it to India and do a similar sort of adventure in rickshaws and launch a company. So it turned from sort of Tom doing the Mongol Rally out of his bedroom in his pants into an organization. And we had 2 pints. I asked him what his business plan was, and he said he was going to build an adventure empire. And I laughed and said, no, really, if I'm going to quit my current job, what is the business plan? And he didn't have a business plan. That was the entire business plan. And then, so I agreed to get involved, and it was fantastic. I was sort of his first person to come on board. And I think it was about 2 weeks later, he was staying with me in Bristol, and he turned up with genuinely a brown paper bag with some cash in it, and said, we need some rickshaws. Can you go to India and buy some, please? And that was my first adventurous mission.
That's so good. And so was that just it? So he just said, okay, you're going to go over there, you're going to source us some rickshaws, and then we're going to create this event.
That was it. The entire amount of the preparation he'd done for me as his first new sort of employee was a brown paper bag with cash. That was it. And I had to go, and I landed in India not having a clue what I was doing, stood on the street corner, and just started from scratch. I think he gave me one phone number of a guy over there called Jitu, who's a rickshaw driver, to look after me. I spent the next sort of 2-3 weeks trying to work out how you buy a fleet of rickshaws to run an adventure for a bunch of international tourists.
Wow. And then like what was the timeline with that then? So like when did you have to then set up the event? And
our timelines were
was he like, just get them as soon as possible and then come back?
Put it this way, the rickshaws rolled off the truck for the adventure at midnight the day before it launched. That's how close it was. I had a lot of help, obviously, with buying them, and we got it all sorted out. And the teams were already there, ready to launch, and the rickshaws hadn't quite turned up yet. And so they technically arrived a few hours before they set off. So we got it done just in time.
Wow. And were there loads of teams just waiting?
I can't remember. I think Tom might have exaggerated or slightly changed the story a little bit and told them everything was fine. There was 34 people on that one, and they were all absolute legends, and they understood they were doing something that had never been done before.
Yeah.
It was totally untested, untried, and their attitude was just perfect for the adventurous. They didn't care about preparation. And then when the vehicles turned up 8 hours before the launch, they just got in them and set off. It's fantastic. So it's an attitude we've tried to sort of keep going ever since, really, that you really don't need to do that much preparation.
And where, like, coming up with these ideas, like, where does that come from? And then going into that discovery phase, obviously, have you run over to India with with a brown paper bag with some cash in, you know, like we're like looking at that. Like, is that sort of something that you guys would think about, you know, when you're trying to plan a new event? And yeah, how do the ideas come about?
Most of the ideas come from Tom, the guy who started the Mongol Rally and started it all. And me and now his wife Jenny are the sort of main team behind it now. And Tom comes up with an idea, and then we gradually help him turn it into something vaguely realistic, and less likely to kill lots of people. We at the beginning we were a bit feral for the first few years, and there was one incident where we came up with an amazing idea for an adventure in Peru. Tom discovered motor taxis, which are sort of the Peruvian tuk-tuks, but they're a motorbike with a bench on the back. And we ordered them. Everything was set. And again, I got a very limited handover. I got to Lima, and I thought everything was on track. And we got a call from the supplier who said they cancelled the order. And we had, I think it was 60 teams flying in from all over the world to do this new adventure in Peru. And the guy who ran the motor taxi company in Peru had opened up the newspaper and seen an article about what we were going to do about the adventure. And it turned out he was quite conservative and didn't really like things like risk, danger, lack of preparation. And he just flipped and ordered them to cancel the order. And they were already on the trucks, and he ordered them to be taken off the trucks and for the whole order to be cancelled. So I was stood on the cliff top in Lima, loving life, and then realising that we had an absolute nightmare on our hands. And we did find replacement motor taxis. Some of them were actually rafted in from Iquitos, because all the dealerships around Peru only have small numbers. So we had to collect them from all over Peru and have them delivered to our launch site. So yeah, some of them came in by boat, and again, it just about on time. I think the event started 2 or 3 days late. And again, all the teams were very understanding. They were what we call the pioneers, the guys who go first, guys and girls who try the completely untested adventures. But that incident did change drastically how we operate. That was, I would say, the end of the transition from feral to somewhat more organized and grown up about how we do things behind the scenes. So we now like to keep the chaos on the adventures and have it as feral as possible, but behind the scenes everything is much more organized, because while it's amusing looking back now, it was not so funny at the time.
And did they, I mean, like, were those guys aware of what they were signing up for? I mean, like they knew that they were kind of, this is going to be, you know, a first adventure of its kind, and you know, they were almost like the guinea pigs. So that
was why they came. Most of them were people from the Mongol Rally or the Rickshaw Run in India, and they came precisely because they were the first, and they knew that it hadn't been done, which also meant they were fantastic about the changes, and they understood that it was unbelievable that our order had been cancelled, but just because they didn't like the adventure. It's not something we could have really anticipated, but even so, from that point on, the format was set that, and it works really well now. Actually, we do a test run. So normally Tom goes off and does a test run, or someone else, and that's with almost no planning whatsoever. A vague notion of a vehicle and a country normally, and we never do the whole route, and we never end up with a finished product. So then we move on to what we call the Pioneers Run, and a sort of small group of idiots, fellow idiots, we call them, will take it on and do the first attempt. But we still don't know exactly what will happen, if they'll make it, how long it will be, all that kind of stuff. And they're the people that sort of almost design the adventure live. And only when we've done the test run with 2 or 3 people, then the Pioneers do the first mission. Then it turns into an adventure, and we unleash it onto the world.
And like after the Rickshaw Run, like, what did you guys do after that? Like what did it? Were you looking at like different locations? Were you kind of looking at like new sort of like motorized experiences or like water, or like what was the focus there?
At that time, the Mongol Rally had just exploded in popularity, and we had too many teams. It sold out within, I think, a day or two,
Wow.
and melted a couple of servers back when physical servers were a thing, in one box. So we decided to run the Africa Rally down to Cameroon, which only lasted, I think, 2 or 3 editions, but was very funny while it did last. Same concept, small cars heading down to Cameroon. And that one actually got cancelled because there was a specific threat made to tourists travelling in a region of Western Africa. And we were summoned to London by the, I think it was a deputy counter-terrorism chief, and ordered to cancel the adventure because of this threat. And I think we did end up running it with some teams despite their threats, and they were fine, but it was the end of that particular adventure.
Okay. And then, so after kind of those years, like of, like doing it sort of a little bit like ad hoc with the preparation, and then taking it more seriously. I mean, is there anything that you look back on and you thought, okay, that like personally with ones that you've been on that you thought that like that was pretty dangerous, or that was something that, we would do differently now?
I think every single adventure we've launched at the time, people said it was too dangerous and tried to get us to stop. I don't think we've ever launched a new adventure where we've been warned against it. So I almost think if we launch an adventure and some people don't complain, we've got it wrong. So I mean, I don't think there's nothing huge I would do differently. I think those early years were, like I said, pretty feral. But I think it was part of the process for us, and we naturally just grew up into a proper organisation. Without those early years of making it up as we went along, we wouldn't have become what it is now, I think. I probably would have picked a different supplier for those motor taxis in Peru. That was unfortunate, but can't change it now.
Yeah. And is there anything that you guys do now in like preparation for guests, or is it sort of like, anything can happen? You guys are on an adventure. This isn't, your run of a mill tour or holiday. So they just go with it, or is there sort of different things that you have in place now?
The most important thing is what we call the Pioneers Edition, and it's normally all people that have done adventures with us before, so they know what's coming. We don't have to worry about warning them what may or may not happen, because they've already done, sometimes 2, 3, or 4 adventures with us. So that's the most important bit. And then we take their feedback very seriously. It does on the front end. It all looks slightly chaotic because it is, it's designed to be overland chaos. But they come back with amazing feedback, and we talk about the route and the vehicles and events we run, the starts and finish, and they essentially help us to design the adventure, and then it becomes available to anyone else who fancies it.
Yeah, nice. And like, would there be any advice that you would give someone that's sort of looking into doing like one of these adventures? I mean, if they were going to come and sort of, or like one of the pioneers, like what would they be staying? If they're in the pub, like what kind of stories they would say, and like how would they kind of advise someone who was looking to do one of these experiences?
Well, with the monkey bike adventures we do now, you can do those on your own. So you don't need teammates. You can rock up, and there are always other people looking for others to ride with, or 2s and 3s that will take on someone to go with them. But if it's an adventure like a Ricksaw Run or a Mongol Rally, I would say choosing your teammates wisely is a very important piece of advice. And I use what I call the what if test. And we do this with people who phone us as customers, and I tell people to do it with teammates. If you say, right, I want to go and drive a monkey bike over the Andes and into the Amazon or whatever, if they ask more than 3 or 4 questions that start with the phrase "what if," they're the wrong person for this kind of adventure.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, so now with everything that's happened, last year and then continuing on this year, how's that affected you guys? I mean, have you sort of looked at sort of seeing how people can is it more remote trips, or are you kind of planning for then maybe sort of later this year?
I hope we do get back to it this year. Yeah. We last summer, when we couldn't run the Mongol Rally, we did the Mongol Rally X, as we called it, and teams all over the world just did their own rally wherever they were in tiny, unsuitable vehicles, which was really good. But no, we're going to stick with ridiculous vehicles in ridiculous places. So we are planning new locations for when we can return to international travel. We've got lots of events planned for the end of this year, and the summer. So until then, yeah, we're just planning new adventures, and we do have another big project which is launching in about 3 weeks' time, which is not an adventure. So that's going to be quite exciting. We've been working on that for a long time now, kind of since the beginning of lockdown. So we'll be able to announce that in about 3 weeks.
Okay. I was going to say, can you say anything about that, or is it all top secret until?
No, if I said anything now, I think Tom would probably hurt me physically.
No worries. And there's a charity angle as well, which has been there from the beginning, right? So when these teams, when they're doing the Mongol Rally, it's for a good cause to raise money. Can you tell us more about that?
We think that if you are privileged enough to fly somewhere, to drive a completely unsuitable vehicle through quite dangerous terrain on purpose, then you should make an effort to raise some money for charity. We don't really believe in the sort of righteous campaigns where people say that the whole trip is about charity for them, which is not mostly true. It's about the adventure, and it's a very, very good excuse for raising money for charity. We've always kept it entirely separate as well. So we kind of pretty strongly believe that you should pay your money for your adventure, and the money that comes to us as a company pays for their adventure, and the money they raise for charity goes directly to the charity. So we've never mixed the two up. Now we support a charity called Cool Earth, and have done for quite a few years, and they protect rainforests and keep the jungles as jungles instead of them being turned into wardrobes. And again, we think that it's important to say that there's always an element of selfishness, and we think that jungles are necessary for adventures and getting lost. So it makes sense for us to help try and protect them, because it'd be rubbish if there were none left.
Fair play. And what have you guys got planned event-wise later this year?
Well, we are going to start electrifying our fleet of rickshaws in India, which is going to be interesting. So we are about to recruit some pioneers, much like the guys who take on the new adventures, but these would be our electric pioneers, to find out if they can take our retrofitted rickshaws and drive them the length of India, bottom to top, and also find places to charge them along the way.
Wow. Is that was it? Well, like that would take a while, huh? I mean, considering how chaotic it is over there.
We're not entirely sure if it would be possible. So there will be 5 teams setting off to find out. We hope it is. We've had lots of help already. People in India contacting us, telling us about charging points and people that will help and put them up. And it's been amazing. But we still don't know if they will be able to make it in the 2 weeks they've got. So we'll find out in September. And then the plan is to retrofit our whole fleet eventually into electric rickshaws. And then along the way, we want to give away those same conversion kits to rickshaw drivers so that they can convert their own rickshaws. And the goal is to give away 1,000 electric conversion kits to rickshaw drivers.
Awesome. Cool, man.
And we've got some really good new locations for the Monkey Run. So
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, so where are they going to be?
We're definitely going to be doing one in Australia at some point when it opens up again eventually. I did a recce out there a while ago, and the plan is to connect stations and ranches in the outback to make a ridiculous route possible. So going to areas you wouldn't be able to go to on your own on a tiny motorbike, because all of the landowners and farmers and ranchers and towns will form a sort of network of stations that we can stop at. But
it would be the opposite to then doing like the East Coast kind of trip, say from like Cairns all the way down to Melbourne, where it would be in the outback, right?
Yes, definitely, very, very deep into the outback, and in places that tourists would not normally ever go to. That's the idea.
Nice.
And there's 2 other locations which we haven't announced yet, which we will be announcing soon. So the Monkey Run will end up probably in about 6 or 7 countries.
That's awesome. And then would that be like, could that be something like a series, or is it's just going to be one-off adventures in those different countries?
That's part of that announcement we're going to make in 3 weeks' time.
Okay.
So hopefully it's going to tie all that together, and we'll show how our plan is going to be shaped in the next sort of few years. But sadly, I'm sworn to secrecy at the moment.
No worries, man. And what's the best way of everyone to follow what you guys are up to, and then find out about this announcement? Where should they be tuning into?
We are the Adventurists on all the usual places. At the Adventurists, as it sounds. And there are other accounts for the Mongol Rally or the Rickshaw Run, whatever anyone's interested in. But yeah, the Adventurist is the main one.
Cool. Well, Dan, thanks a lot for your time, man. It's been great chatting to you, and we'll definitely keep an eye out for what you guys are up to.
No worries. Great to chat. Thanks, Ollie.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.